In 2025, Steven Tyler turned 77, and at his Rock Hall introduction, something that no one saw coming happened. Fans couldn't believe it when cameras caught him without his normal stage makeup. His brow had deep lines that shocked even people who had been following him for a long time. That wasn't the scariest part, though. New pictures show something totally different. Doctors say that the reason he shakes his hands now is because of his wild past. The man used to scream for hours on stage, but now he can barely speak. You'll be shocked by what really happened to the rock star's face. Steven Victor Tallarico was born on March 26, 1948, at the Stuyvesant Polyclinic Hospital in Manhattan. This hospital had cared for many generations of New Yorkers before it closed in 1978. Vic, his father, was a highly trained pianist who taught high school music. Susan, his mother, stayed at home and was proud of her Polish roots. There were strict rules and piano notes all over their flat all the time. Steven grew up hearing a lot of noise, but he also felt like his family wanted him to fit into a small space. Music was the only thing that made him feel alive and happy, but he also fought with it behind his parents' backs because they wanted him to follow the rules and he wanted to be free. He felt that stress in his bones long before he ever performed on a real stage. His family moved to the Bronx when he was 3 years old in the hopes that things would get better. Instead, the kids in the neighborhood crushed his self-esteem. His hair was wavy, and he walked in a strange way. And boys in the Bronx in the 1950s didn't let that go. They made fun of him, shoved him, and pushed him away from them. Every day at school was painful. He put on a show to protect himself, and soon he was challenging teachers as well as bullies. Steven didn't feel at ease at home either, because his father had strict practice rules that made him feel like he could only breathe when he slipped outside. Doo-wop groups singing in the parks at night gave him a strange sense of peace when he was 6 years old. He just stood there and listened, picturing himself in front of people who wanted to hear him. When Steven was 9 years old, his family moved again. This time, they went to 100 Pembroke Drive in northeast Yonkers. There was less noise in the suburbs than in the city, but Steven's mind kept getting louder. At age 8, he learned to play the drums with pots and cardboard boxes. He would sneak Elvis Presley records into his room at night and copy every move, shake, and shout. He hoped no one caught him. In the living room, his dad played Beethoven, and Steven could be alone and spin Elvis records. It was that quiet war between classical and rock music that made him want to become a performer. Someone who could scream, growl, whisper, and soar all in the same song. Around the age of 10, Steven learned a secret that all kids remember. In the 1920s, his grandfather was a drunk driver. Run illegal booze businesses and avoid the law. Steven liked it a lot. It made him feel like he was born to be dangerous. He got an idea that someone in his family used to live without following the rules. He might be able to break the rules if his grandpa could. The stories gave them fire. He wore them like a badge and later used that same wild spirit to make his music even better than anyone thought it could be. He got asthma early and hard. He was stuck inside for days, gasping for air and listening to his lungs fail him. He stayed in bed and thought about bright lights and lots of people while other kids ran outside. Every attack held him down, but every dream set him free. He thought that he was bigger, louder, and harder to touch. He became a showman because of those lonely hours. His screams and jumps on stage weren't just for show. They were made as escape routes when kids were sick. It wasn't going away, but he learned how to use his weakness as a weapon. Steven put all of his pent-up energy into a band called The Strangers by 1962, when he was 14 years old. They quickly changed their name to Chain Reaction, and Steven played drums at first. Back in 1964, he made a noise in the garage that sounded a lot like Little Richard. The band pushed him to the front after looking at him in shock. Everything changed at that time. He had already played for bands like the Beach Boys and the Byrds when he was 16. Before it became his signature, he wore platform shoes and wrapped scarves around himself all the time. The teachers did not like it. Steven didn't care that he was suspended for bad behavior. He was after a big thing. With each step of defiance that brought him closer. Because he used pot, he was kicked out of Roosevelt High School in 1966, and he went to the Quintano School for Young Professionals in Manhattan. He sold leather things he made by hand on the streets to pay for it. He moved around a lot, worked hard, and went to late-night parties where drugs were easy to get and even easier to use. Steven's dad wanted him to go into classical music, but he had already picked the loud road. Quintano put him in touch with the wild side of the hippies in the 1960s. That spirit filled his speech, his writing, and the way he spoke and wrote. After a year, in 1967, he went to a ski area in New Hampshire and ran into Tom Hamilton. They became close because of Jimi Hendrix and played music all night. When they played that night, no one knew it, but it was the start of Aerosmith. Steven was known in some clubs in the area, but meeting Hamilton was the final piece in the puzzle. They hit it off right away, and they were both hungry. It felt like the beginning of something big that could shake the walls. In 1968, every young man was being drafted into the Vietnam War. Steven sneaked into anti-war protests, hid in band vans, and barely avoided being caught. He wasn't going to accept a system that tried to hold him back. A few of his friends were sent to war and never came back. Steven didn't go because he was high on drugs and had a rebellious streak that put him outside of what was accepted. That time made him stubborn, and he didn't want to bow down, bend, or break in Aerosmith. His first gigs were with Chain Reaction in Boston clubs in 1969. He crowd-surfed without a shirt on, and went into chaos that shocked people and sometimes got close to turning into riots. His friends always fought with him, but the crowds wouldn't look away. The Boston scene was where he trained to become the crazy force that would later blow up in theaters. Then it was July 31, 1970. Steven Tyler went to Boston's Fenway neighborhood to hang out with Joe Perry, Tom Hamilton, Joey Kramer, and Ray Tabano. It was the start of Aerosmith. Steven got the idea for the name from a comic book he read in a dream he had while high during practice. As they practiced, they lived on instant noodles and slept wherever they could find a space. Everywhere he looked, people said no, but Steven held on to the idea. On November 6, 1970, at Nipmuc Regional High School in Upton, Massachusetts, they put on their first real show. There were only about 200 kids there. Steven played Mama Kin, and at the end of the night, they smashed Joey Kramer's drum kit because they were only getting $50. The fight moved to the parking lot before the cops arrived, but word got around. It was hard to forget a band that crazy. Danny Goldberg saw their crazy show at Lenny's on the Highway in June 1972 and signed them to Columbia Records for about $125,000. There was smoke everywhere. Steven stood in the middle of the loud crowd like he owned the place. Columbia took a chance, and Aerosmith finally got their chance. In 1971 and 1972, the first trips were rough. They drove in a van that was painted psychedelically and didn't have a bathroom, beds, or much money. They used truck stops to clean up and ate cheap food. Steven even threw up on stage because of some bad hot dogs, but the crowd cheered. The band kept going, and the van turned into a moving house full of sweat, laughter, and stress. This is how their legend began. Steven and Joe Perry were fighting over words and power by the end of 1972. Before they went on a trip to Sunapee, New Hampshire, they were about to break up. They drank, partied, and told each other they would rise together. When they got home, they were all in it together. Not long after that, they fired Ray Tabano for not being dependable and put Brad Whitford in his place. Steven was already using drugs, which made the band nervous. But Whitford's steady presence helped them see what was going on. At Intermedia Studios in Boston, they made their first album between the end of 1972 and the beginning of 1973. Steven's raw singing on Mama Kin scared the record company but made the band happy. They kept track of every strange shout. The record came out in January 1973. At first, it was simple, but it placed their flag. It was the chaos, the hunger, the fights, and the dreams that made Aerosmith's sound, which took them from the basement to the top of rock history. Steven Tyler went to a record plant in New York in 1974. His voice still sounded young, but he had a drive that made him seem older than he was. We were running out of time for the band to finish Get Your Wings. Lord of the Thighs was the last thing that was left, and Jack Douglas pushed Tyler harder than anyone else had. Tyler stood there for 12 hours straight, stacking his voice over and over again until he felt like something inside him was breaking. By the end of the night, his throat was running with blood, but he kept going because they needed that last sound. Aerosmith's music will never be the same without those deep bluesy layers. The record quickly made them famous. But it was also the first sign that Tyler's body would not be safe when it got out of rock and roll. Tyler had been thinking about Dream On since 1969, when it was just a piano track he played to himself. It didn't really take off until 1975, when it was re-released and went straight to number 6. All of a sudden, every radio station wanted to be a part of it. But all that attention caused trouble. They couldn't handle Tyler's rough language and talks in Boston. He made fun of censors' rules and called them prudes until a few stations banned him. Fans loved the song even more after it was banned. Without Dream On, Aerosmith would have been hard to ignore, and Tyler would have looked like he was born to fight. Asheville Jam came around in 1975. Aerosmith was already living the high life. At the Ontario Motor Speedway, 250,000 people were in front of them, and Tyler felt a rush. He jumped 20 feet into the air like he couldn't fall after running across the stage and climbing up on the drum stand. He broke his heel when he hit the ground wrong, but he kept singing. It didn't hurt. There were cameras rolling. More people screamed. There were even weirder stories from behind the scenes about wild parties, but the jump itself lived on in history. Tyler was willing to go to great lengths just to please the crowd. In the fall of that same year, Toys in the Attic came out, and Tyler and Joe Perry quickly put together Walk This Way from a 20-minute riff. It took Tyler a while to write the words down because he didn't have any paper and didn't want to wait. He kept taking cocaine off the mixing board to stay awake in the middle of all the chaos. After many years, Jack Douglas said that the studio turned into a place where no one slept and everyone was looking for something new. Those habits were bad for you, but they changed music forever. This song was in rock, rap, and a lot of other styles too. It also brought Aerosmith to the attention of people all over the world. Detroit got the show that no one saw coming in 1976. Tyler saw a girl in the crowd and asked her to marry him off stage. People in the crowd yelled for the show, but things got crazy backstage. His girlfriend, Bebe Buell, ran onto the stage and fought with him. Fans said it looked like a scene from a movie. It was all over the news. Aerosmith had a history of getting into trouble. This moment showed how messed up Tyler's personal life been. Back in the Saddle thrashed with a whip crack that sounded great, but it wasn't easy to make that sound. Rocks came out in 1976. At first, they used a real bullwhip. It did not work. It hurt more than it helped. When nothing worked for hours, they spun a 30-foot cord and broke a cap gun to get the crack. It got to number 3 on the charts, but the band was losing steam. Tyler had trouble speaking at shows. Fans didn't understand and were sometimes mad. So many people were hooked on drugs that not even success could hide it. Then there was the Rolling Stones tour in 1977. Tyler stood next to Mick Jagger on stage in Baton Rouge and sang Brown Sugar like the stage was theirs. The press loved it, but behind the scenes, Tyler almost died of an overdose of heroin after Jagger gave him some. He went from being bright under the lights to being dim backstage in an instant. It was a hint of what was to come. By 1977, Tyler had injected drugs and passed out in the studio during the Draw the Line sessions. For weeks, they couldn't record. These delays cost about $200,000 in costs. They tried to get him to sing without drugs, but his addiction took over the room. There were rumors that the band might not even make it. Strange events in 1979 put an end to everything for a while. Kathy Hamilton, wife of Tom Hamilton, got drenched in milk by Alyssa Perry, wife of Joe Perry, backstage in West Hollywood. When Tyler lost it, he hit Perry, and the fight got very bad very quickly. After a few hours, Perry quit. The band broke up. Ego, drugs, and chaos had been building up to that one moment for years. After a year, Tyler overdosed on methadone on July 9 in Portland, Maine. During the show, he fell into the drum set and needed CPR before being rushed to the hospital. the band had to call off a whole tour. Something had to change, and this was the strongest sign yet that it had to. But change wasn't easy. Jimmy Crespo joined the band after Perry left and helped make Rock in a Hard Place in 1982. Tyler didn't show up at all. He was high on Percocet and his voice was flat and tired when he did. It got as low as number 37, which is their lowest position since the beginning. Some people said it sounded like a band breaking up. They had a point. The band finally tried to save him in 1983. They begged Tyler to go to rehab when they saw him at Café La Fortuna. Certainly. He stayed at Hazelden for 30 days. Stress and pain from detox hit him hard. He came out more clearly, but he was still not part of the group. It wasn't easy to heal the scars from the past. After a year, he again overdosed. In a hotel room, there was booze and Valium. The paramedics brought him back to life. He went to his first AA group because of his fear. The road stayed rough, even though it was a step. By 1985, when Perry's return was being talked about, things were almost over. Then Tyler had another episode during practice. Instead of getting back together, Tyler worked on small projects like a role in Rogues Gallery in 1986. His slurred lines had to be shot again. It felt like years had gone by. During these years, Tyler's personal life was also a mess. He slept with Baby Buell for a short time in 1976. It was on July 1, 1977, that she gave birth to Liv Tyler. She named Todd Rundgren as the father because she was afraid of Tyler's way of life. Liv didn't find out the truth until 1991, when a DNA test showed her everything. She was 14 years old. She was very shocked at first, but she finally became close with her real father. Tyler also got married to Serinda Fox on September 1, 1978. On December 22, 1978, their daughter Mia was born. The marriage fell apart because of drugs, affairs, and traveling all the time. In 1987, they got a divorce. Serinda had a hard time in the years that followed and died in 2002. Grew up remembering a dad who was never there. In 1973, Tyler began dating Julia Holcomb, who was 16 years old at the time. This was the worst event in Tyler's history. He became her formal guardian, and the lawsuit that came out decades later was a painful account of abuse, drugs, and manipulation. Tyler said that his mistakes were crimes of passion, but everyone else saw something much worse. After splitting up with Serinda, he got married to Teresa Barak in 1988. Chelsea and Taj were born in 1989 and 1991, respectively. Because Tyler was addicted to drugs, the marriage was stressed until they split up in 2005 and got a divorce in 2006. He got engaged to Erin Brady in 2011, and she helped him deal with some things from his past. In 2013, she found old love letters from the 1970s, which ended their romance. Tyler said he felt bad about the person he used to be. After many years, he fell in love with Amy Preston, who had worked for him at first. In 2016, they went public. Even though she was 38 years younger than him, they became closer as they worked on their healing and went through the same struggles. After that, something changed. Tyler changed his ways, and Aerosmith are back on top. They put out Permanent Vacation in August 1987. The record Dude Looks Like a Lady sold over 4 million copies and peaked at number 17. All of a sudden, the band was everywhere. Tyler was clean, artistic, and eager to get his life back. In 1989, Rolling Stone named them the best hard rock band in the United States. Pump released Janie's Got a Gun that same year. Tyler put his voice on top of that track more than 50 times. It got to number 4 and won him his first Grammy. It sold more than 7 million copies in the US. Aerosmith played in Moscow in 1990 for about 1 million people. While everyone watched, Tyler crowd-surfed and gave Soviet guards peace signs. It turned into one of the strangest shows of the time. Get a Grip came out in 1993 and has since sold more than 20 million copies around the world. Cryin' grew very big. Tyler broke 3 ribs when he jumped off a cliff during the music video shoot, but he kept going until the video was over. Then came 2 Grammys. The band was once again at the top. Their Ballpark Brawl tour made $35 million in 1994. Tyler had a short relapse backstage in Detroit, but he quickly caught himself and got sober again. The trip showed that they were back for real. 9 Lives came out in 1997 and almost didn't do well, but Pink saved it. Tyler rode an elephant in the video, and the record sold over 6 million copies and went to number 1. He sang the song for his late father, who died in 2001. Then the world-shaking song came out. I Don't Wanna Miss a Thing was the number 1 song for 4 weeks in a row in 1998. It helped the Armageddon music sell more than 11 million copies around the world. It sold more than 1 million copies in its first month. Tyler's moving act made it a classic around the world. Steven Tyler thought it would be another session when he walked into Magic Ventures' studio in New York in July 1986. But something changed when he walked into that room with Run DMC. They were standing next to each other and recorded the new version of Walk This Way all at once. At that point in time, rock and rap didn't really mix with each other. To their surprise, they mixed the Aerosmith hit from 1975 with the rough edge of hip-hop. It went straight to number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 when the remix came out. Aerosmith sold over 10,000 CDs in 1 week, up from about 2,000 a week. When MTV showed the video over and over, rap rock became a real force. That day in the studio changed everything, and bands like Linkin Park and Limp Bizkit have since gone through it. After many years, Steven was in a very different kind of attention. It was a big payday for him when he became a judge on American Idol in 2011. He made between $8 and $10 million per season. The crazy man behind the screen lit up the scene. The press went crazy when he kissed Pia Toscano on the cheek. It took him 250,000 miles to do the show, which wore him out until he quit after season 12. She made $17.5 million a season, which was almost twice as much as he did. This made his team unhappy. His friends also felt the stress. They thought that his life on TV took him away from Aerosmith. Neil Urban took over the show when he left, and Steven went back to making music full-time. Before all that, he wrote a book in 2006 called Does the Noise in My Head Bother You? About his life and let everyone know about it. It shocked people when it reached number 2 on the New York Times top list. He talked about the chaos of the 1970s and said he spent $20 million on drugs. He wrote about clubs and fights, getting better, and the damage he made without fully facing the pain that came with it. The scariest part was when he said he tried to kill himself in 1986 by taking 30 pills and then his girlfriend came and saved him. The honest stories in the book made it a hit, and they showed that he could keep people interested with words just as well as music. His acting roles were brief but memorable. In Wayne's World 2, which came out in 1993, he played a cardboard cutout of himself playing a harmonica. In 2005, he was in the movie Be Cool, and he even made fun of how old he looked in the mirror. These cameos showed his humor and charm in very small ways. He never set out to be an actor, but every time he did, he made an impression. His attention turned to something more important as he got older. He began Janie's Fund in 2015. The fund raised $25 million by 2025 and paid for 66,000 therapy days for 525 abused girls after the singer thought about the pain behind his song, Janie's Got a Gun. It helped almost 4,000 girls a year in 12 states and Washington, D.C. He opened a new center in 2021 and spent time with the girls himself. That project grew into one of the most important celebrity charities for youth recovery, and it showed how important his mission was to him. But life tested him again. In 2021, he released his solo album, We're All Somebody from Somewhere, a step into the world of Nashville. He worked with Carrie Underwood and others, and the album hit number 1 on the top country albums chart. It sold 16,800 pure copies in its first week. Songs like Red, White and You Felt Bold while Hold On carried pieces of his hard-won resilience. The album came after a relapse scare and carried the honesty of a man who had been to the edge many times and still kept moving. That edge had shown up in 2009 when he underwent surgery on both feet for severe bunions caused by decades of tight boots and wild stage moves. Doing both feet at once was rare and extremely painful. Doctors put him on OxyContin and the pain pulled him back into addiction. After more than 10 years of sobriety, he fell into prescription drug dependence and checked himself into the Betty Ford Center in December 2009. Aerosmith had to cancel their tour, but he came back in time for the 2010 Grammys. By speaking openly about the relapse, he reminded fans how powerful and dangerous painkillers can be. Just when things seemed steady, he faced another crisis. On August 5, 2011, he crashed his motorcycle in Maui and walked away with a fractured shoulder, a deep head cut that needed 20 stitches, and a lacerated liver. He went through 8 surgeries. Yet weeks later, he walked on stage at the 2011 VMAs with his arm in a sling and joked about his rock and roll bones before singing a bit of Dream On. The crash caused more tour cancellations, but his refusal to sit still showed how much performing meant to him. Then came the shock in 2023. Aerosmith started their Peace Out farewell tour at UBS Arena on September 9 when Steven pushed too hard in the opening moments and fractured his larynx. The injury caused bleeding and he fell on stage. Doctors said he needed months to heal and might never fully recover. The rest of the tour was postponed. Fans were shocked because his voice had carried the band for more than 50 years. The accident showed how fragile even the strongest singer can be. In 2024, he tried everything to heal. Stem cell injections in Utah and Nashville offered hope, but not guarantee. By August, doctors decided the damage was permanent. Aerosmith revealed they would retire from touring after more than 50 years. It was painful, but unavoidable. A whole era of classic rock seemed to bow its head as they made the news. Even after that, he still found times to share music. In February 2025, he performed at the Jam for Janie charity event in Los Angeles. It was his first appearance since the injury. He sang 3 songs, such as Dream On and Walk This Way. The crowd stood and cheered, even though his voice was rough and his neck looked swollen. Experts told him not to push himself, and the wounds showed what they meant. He still gave the room everything he had, though. In December of that year, he sang Mama I'm Coming Home with Joe Perry at the 2025 VMAs as a tribute to Ozzy Osbourne. He didn't move much to keep his throat safe. The show moved the crowd, and they gave it another standing applause. His voice hurt after he left the stage, so he was rushed to the hospital. The honor showed how strong he was even though he had boundaries, and it also showed how much it cost to perform. He put even more effort into Janie's fun after he stopped touring. For 2025, he opened a new center for girls in Tennessee with $10 million saved from his trip. Hundreds of girls went to the center every year for therapy, residential care, and assistance. It became a life sign of how he turned his own hurt into something that helped him feel better. Fans started to talk about how he looked as all of this was going on. His face stood out at the 2025 Rock Hall introduction. He said in 2007 that he only used eye creams, but deep lines on his forehead showed that he used a lot of Botox in the 2010s. Comparing pictures from the 2000s and later years sparked arguments about the role of genetics and the effects of decades spent driving. Some fans even thought that his early use of heroin might have given him an oddly smooth, young look that went away with time. His face became a sign of how hard it can be for rock stars to age. Amy Preston, his partner, posted pictures of his home life on Instagram in 2025. Many fans thought the shaking in his hands were still effects of drug abuse from the past. He did yoga almost every day, even though he had shakes. In his 60s, he found yoga, which helped him stay strong and flexible. Pictures of him showed him cooking, laughing at parties, and playing music with his friends. He walked more slowly at age 77, but he still had that spark. People said the tremors made them think of the fights he had been in, but his dedication to his health made him feel like a winner in motion. People could finally see the man behind the legend. He was still standing and learning. His home life looked calm and real. Still holding on to any music he still had in him.